Give a smile, give a smile, give a smile, give a smile. Give a smile, give a smile. Be the reason someone smiles. Give a smile, give a smile, give a smile, give a smile. Give a smile, give a smile. Be the reason someone smiles. Give a smile, give a smile, give a smile. Give a smile, give a smile. Be the reason someone smile. Give a smile, give a smile, give a smile, give a smile. Give a smile, give a smile. Be the reason someone smiles. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot 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 besimcha. Be the reason someone smiles. 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 Siva gedola, liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot besimcha. Someone smile. Be the reason someone smile. Be the reason someone smile. Be the reason someone smiles. 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 Give a smile. Give a smile. Give a smile, give a smile, give a smile, give a smile. Give a smile, give a smile. Be the reason someone smiles. Give a smile, give a smile, give a smile, give a smile. Give a smile, give a smile. Be the reason someone smiles. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot liot besimcha. Siva gedola, liot besimcha. Give a smile, give a smile, give a smile, give a smile. Give a smile, give a smile. Be the reason someone smile. Give a smile, give a smile, give a smile, give a smile. Give a smile, give a smile. Be the reason someone smiles. Siva, gedola, lio, lio, besimcha. Siva, gedola, lio, lio, besimcha. Siva, gedola, lio, lio, besimcha. Siva, gedola, lio, besimcha. Siva, gedola, lio, 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 besimcha. Be the reason someone smiles. 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 Siva gedola, lio besimcha. Siva gedola, lio lio besimcha. Siva gedola, lio lio besimcha. Siva gedola, lio besimcha. Someone smile. Be the reason someone smile. Be the reason someone smile. Be the reason someone smiles. Be the reason someone smiles.
Breakfast with Ellie.
מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים שהחזרת בי, נשמתי בחמלה רבה אמונתך.
נראים חידה, הדרך עוד לא אבודה, מילה אחת ויחידה, להגיד לך תודה, 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 אבא תודה, 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 אבא תודה, תודה, תודה.
Good morning, good Yom Tov, and welcome to Breakfast with Ellie. Season 8, episode 48. It is Wednesday, the 20th day of Kislev, the 10th day of December. The Torah portion is Vayeshev. Vayeshev Yaakov. Yaakov dwelled. HaYom Yom Revi'i SHABBOS, the fourth day counting up toward Shabbos. We learn the fourth Aliyah. And I say good Yom Tov because it is the Yom Tov of Yud Tes Chaf Kislev, the 19th and 20th day of the month of Kislev, the day that the Alter Rebbe was freed from prison. He was actually told on the 19th that he would be leaving the prison. He was actually told that he'd be leaving prison on the 19th, and he did not leave until the 20th day. So we'll talk about that a little bit more coming up. All right. Let's start our davening. Men and boys, take your two front tzitzis. Everyone else join us in the second bracha. Ready?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al mitzvat tzitzit. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah uvaravo nekavim nekavim chalulim chalulim galui v'yadua lifnei chisei כבודך שאם יסתם אחד מהם או אם ייפתח אחד מהם אי אפשר להתקיים אפילו שעה אחת. ברוך אתה אדוני רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. Hareini mekabel alai mitzvat aseh shel ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. I take upon myself every single day to love my fellow friend in a very special way.
Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe, Morasha kehilas Yaakov, Morasha kehilas Yaakov, Morasha kehilas Yaakov, Torah tziva lanu Moshe.
I put it in the pushki that's a darker box. I put it in the pushki that's a darker box. I put it in the pushki for someone else to keep. Yeah, I put it in the pushki that's a darker box. I put it in the pushki that's a darker box. I put it in the pushki for someone else in need.
All right. Thank you very much. Hashem says thank you for giving tzedakah. All right, Julie, you're back. All right. It's time to say the Shema. Take your right hand and place it over your eyes. You ready? Here we go.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha vehayu hadvarim האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
All right, and we're at breakfast. I've got my traditional coffee and yogurt, which I have every day for breakfast. Sometimes I have cottage cheese. I don't want to lie to you. It's true. When I run out of yogurt, I have cottage cheese. But we're going shopping to Bingo tomorrow, doing our Hanukkah shopping tomorrow. I'm very excited about it. Meanwhile, we're going to make a bracha shahakol on the coffee and the yogurt. I'm going to keep the yogurt in mind as I make the bracha on the coffee and drink the coffee, and then I will have the yogurt. Baruch ato Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shahakol nihiyah bidvaroi.
Coffee, blessed coffee. God bless you for being a friend. When the whole world turns on me, it's only you on which I can depend. I want to taste you in the morning and a few times throughout the day. Yes, a cup or two in the evening too. For me, it's the only way. Yeah.
All right. That is amazing. We are done. Well, I'm not done with the yogurt or the coffee, but, the bracha. All right. Today in Jewish history, all will be explained. All right. Our sages tell us that Ezra's address took place on this day in 347 BCE. Ezra, who was the head of the Sanhedrin and the leader of the Jewish people at the time of the building of the Second Temple, made an historic address to the three-day assemblage of Jews in Jerusalem, exhorting them to adhere to the teachings of the Torah and to dissolve their interfaith marriages. The Jewish people were on the verge of complete assimilation at the time, following their 70-year exile in Babylonia after the destruction of the First Temple. And so Ezra addressed the Jewish people and told them to adhere to the Torah with great results. All right. As we said, today is the Rosh Hashanah of Hasidism. We joyfully celebrate today as the Rosh Hashanah, the new year of Hasidism, with Farbrengens, Hasidic gatherings, and an increased commitment to the ways and teachings of Hasidus philosophy. Tachnun and similar prayers are admitted, and we begin the yearly cycle of the daily study of Tanya. We did that yesterday. We will continue doing the beginning today. The Tanya is Rabbi Shneur Zalman's major Hasidic work, and it is part of our Chitas daily study program. Chitas studying Chumash, Tehillim, and Tanya. Ches, Tuf, Chitas. And it is also the anniversary of the first printing of the Tanya, the magnum opus of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad, known lovingly as the Alter Rebbe. All right. For more information about this, see the entries for yesterday, Kislev 19th, and today, Kislev 20 at Chabad.org. The first printing of the Tanya occurred in 1796. 1796. All right. The Alter Rebbe was imprisoned And what's the story with that? There's a nice little story that goes along with that. So here, watch this or listen. I'm warning you, the program's a little sticky today. My changes are going to be slow.
You know, the Alter Rebbe was in prison, and this big general came up to him and said, there is no God. He says, okay. Then he's talking to him, then he says to him, can you tell me anything which doesn't exist? So he says to him, listen, if it doesn't exist, how can I talk about it? I wouldn't know about it. You see, if you talk about it, obviously it exists, right? Somewhere.
All right, half a story. I'm sorry, I thought I had the whole thing there. All right. Let's go to Rabbi Rappaport. He's got a quick video for us. I told you it's going to be slow.
The commentaries tell us that the story of Jacob leaving Israel, going to Haran, is really an analogy to each and every one of our lives. Haran represents work, labor. It represents trying to make a buck, raise a family. A lot of that stuff is not pretty and not easy. A lot of it is very exhausting. You got to deal with difficult people. You just want a little time to relax, a little time to connect to God. But when are you going to do it? The Kabbalists tell us that whole journey is a reflection of Jacob going into Haran. But look at what happens. It's in Haran that Jacob gets married, finds love. It's in Haran that he raises the 12 tribes. It's in Haran where he gives birth to the future of the Jewish people. In many religions, the goal is to go to heaven. In Judaism, of course, we believe in heaven and hell. The purpose is to come here into this physical world and have the opportunity to do our part to make this world better. And we do it through working the world, through getting a job, through raising a family, with dealing with people. That's the destiny of our soul. This is it.
היום הזה הוא זמן שמחתנו, שמע את התפילה שבליבנו, ותמחול את כל עוונותינו ביום הזה.
HaYom thoughts for the day, 20 Kislev. Not everything one thinks need they say, and not everything one says need be said publicly, and not everything said publicly need be printed. When it's printed, it's out of your hands and into the world. When the Alter Rebbe took this bold move to print and distribute the Tanya, there is no putting that back into just the insider guys. This is a lesson. When you say it, it's out there and out of your domain. Think twice and then say it like it's important, because now it is.
Why does life have to be such a struggle? How do you deal with anger, jealousy, anxiety, and despair? And what's the purpose of life anyways? These are but a sampling of some of the major questions addressed in the most important book of Chabad philosophy, the Tanya. When was the Tanya printed? The first printing of the Tanya was completed on Tuesday, the 20th day of Kislev, in the year 1796 in the Ukrainian town of Slavita. This first edition included part 1, which is termed Sefer Shel Beinanim, the book of the intermediate. That's a funny name for a book. It's interesting, the author of the Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman, didn't refer to the book on its front page, on its title page as the Tanya, but as the book of intermediate, precisely because the Tanya is not addressed to the perfectly righteous person who's already solved his struggles in life. On the contrary, the Tanya is there for the intermediate guy, the person who is struggling, has got questions and problems. For that person, the Tanya provides solutions and answers. So part 1 of this of the Tanya is Sefer Shel Beinanim, the book of the intermediate, and this first edition of the Tanya also included a second section, Chinuch Katan and Shar HaYichud V'Hamuna, the second section addressing the question of how we can understand a perfect single God in a sometimes very imperfect and fragmented world. The third section of the Tanya, Igeres HaTshuva, was first printed in Zolkvi in the year 1799, and then again in Shklov in the year 1806. The next section of the Tanya, Igeres HaKodesh, which is a collection of letters of Rabbi Shneur Zalman, was first printed in Shklov in the year 1814. The Tanya, in its final edition with all four parts, in the form that we have it today, was first printed in Vilna in the year 1900 and has been reprinted many times since. It's been more than 200 years now, but the words of the Tanya are still as relevant today as they were the day that they were first published. Once you taste Tanya, your perspective on the world, God, and your own soul will never be the same. I invite you to have a taste.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rabbi Steiner. We do appreciate that. All right, and we are moving on now to a word from our sponsors, and then we're going to learn some Torah.
And now, a word from our sponsors. PestProRidol.com.
PestProRidol.com. Trusted by the best to keep away the pests. We are offering COVID-19 disinfection services. Mention this ad and get 1 month free service. Visit us at PestProRidol.com.
Tarzane Group. Micro, miniature, and small orchids. Go to tarzanegroup.com or call Tomas at 305-440-0565. That's 305-440-0565 and order today. Visit Tomas and Yair at tarzanegroup.com. Micro, miniature, and small orchids. Beautiful in your home. Go to the website and read Tomas's orchid blog. And by Dina D Design. DinaDDesign@gmail.com. Fine artwork, custom made to your specifications, logos, wall hangings, Judaica, and you can even have something for your child's room. Dina D Designs. Go to her Facebook or Instagram or call or text. Thank you very much to our sponsors. If you'd like to become a sponsor, please go right up here to where it says patreon.com/theactorsrabbi, and you can contribute even only $1 a month if you'd like, but that'll help us bring this broadcast to you on a daily basis and cover our expenses. Be sure to thank your sponsors when shopping and mention Breakfast with Elli when you're shopping there. There might be discounts. Thanks for watching.
Helping lots of people any way we can Tzedakah is the Jewish way to help your fellow man.
All right, if you would like to help out and help bring Torah all around the planet, all you need to do is scan this QR code that you see right here on your screen. If you can't see it on your screen, it takes you to breakfastwithelli.live/support, breakfastwithelli.live/support, where you can contribute to bringing Torah all around the world. We have people listening to this broadcast from every corner of the planet, and even more people in a replay, because we're 10 to 11:30 Eastern time is not always the easiest time for people to listen to this in all time zones, and so they watch this all day. Somebody's watching it someplace. So I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled that this is being watched, but we still need help in bringing this broadcast to you, because it costs us now almost $12,000 a year. It's 11 something. And so if you'd like to participate, you can do a double mitzvah. You can get credit for other people learning Torah and giving tzedakah at the same time. Go to breakfastwithelli.live/support or patreon.com/theactorsrabbi and contribute today. All right? All right. Let's learn some Torah. Sticky wicket.
Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe.
All right. We've been doing the overview to Parshas Vayeshev, and we are now going to explain why the Torah interrupts the narrative of Yosef with an interlude describing Yehuda's extra-familial business alliance. And through this alliance, he fathered Peretz, the ancestor of King David, who was in turn the ancestor of Mashiach. If you remember correctly, David HaMelech, King David, was supposed to be the Mashiach, but the Jewish people were not ready for the redemption at that time. Therefore, one of the ancestors of King David will be the Mashiach in the next generation, or this generation, God willing. Yehuda so emerges from this episode as the catalyst not only of the redemption of Yaakov's family by saving Yosef from being put to death by his brothers, but also the father of the ultimate redeemer of the entire Jewish people and therefore humanity in general. So, back to Vayeshev Yaakov. In asking Hashem for the tranquility necessary to better fulfill his divine mission, as my rabbi in yeshiva always said before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, when you are standing in front of God, saying these prayers in our Yomim Noraim, in our days of awe, and you are praying for health and praying for happiness and praying to learn better and to do mitzvahs better and to be a better person and to be a better friend and to be a better Jew, ask for money. Yeah, it sounds crass. Ask for money. But there's a very practical reason. If you are worried about having to pay your electric bill, or worried that they're going to shut off the phone, or worried that they're going to come and foreclose on your property, or they're going to throw you out in the street because you didn't pay rent, how can you daven? How can you fulfill mitzvahs if your constant worry is about money? So don't ask for millions and millions of dollars. Don't ask that Elon Musk should come to your door and drop $1 billion off. Ain't going to happen. Just ask for whatever is needed for you to live without worry. So, in order to fulfill Hashem's mission, Yaakov asked for tranquility. And what he asked for was simply what he had earned by having passed his tests with Lavan, Esav, and Shem. And as we said, Hashem granted him tranquility at this time. But afterwards, Hashem wanted to grant him even more profound tranquility, enabling him to fulfill his divine mission in an even more profound way. That tranquility would transcend all that he had earned by virtue of his own efforts and would be a foretaste of the Messianic era. Now, in order to earn this level of peace and contentment, he had to pass a test, the likes of which he had never before faced. The common denominator of his prior tests was that each was a struggle with some form of evil. Such tests may indeed be difficult, but at least they give us the satisfaction of knowing we have accomplished something tangible by passing them. In contrast, the test of seemingly meaningless suffering offers no such satisfaction. It was precisely to this test that Hashem now subjected Yaakov in the form of the ordeal of losing his precious son Yosef and enduring a prolonged, debilitating doubt over the fate of his life's work, 22 years, as we will learn. By enduring this suffering, Yaakov was refined to the point that he later became, in Parshas Vayeshev, a fitting recipient of Hashem's gift of infinitely profound peace and contentment. So the first lesson that we can take from this Parsha is to be aware that the hand of divine providence is always orchestrating events, albeit behind the scenes. No matter how hopeless our situation may seem, the solution may be just around the corner, and the mechanism of Geula, redemption, might well already have been set in motion. Secondly, we see how important it is to look beyond the vicissitudes of the present and yearn for the Geula, the redemption, just as we find Yaakov doing at the opening of this Parsha. It's instructive to note that Hashem did not seek to take Yaakov on the path that would lead to true messianic tranquility until he specifically requested it. Furthermore, it was his longing for Mashiach that set in motion the entire process that would eventually lead to precisely that redemption. Now, astute observers may respectfully submit at this point that they would rather forego the reward of true peace and contentment if the price to be paid is a prolonged, senseless suffering akin to Yaakov's. But inasmuch as we already suffered so much throughout history, particularly in recent years, it's clear that we've already undergone sufficient refinement to merit the final redemption without having to be subjected to any further suffering. All that remains is for us to beg Hashem sincerely and assertively, we want Mashiach now, and he will surely respond. This is from Sichos of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. In the fourth Aliyah, the story of Yosef is interrupted by the story of Yehuda and Tamar. Yehuda married the daughter of a local businessman and had 3 sons. His first son, named married a woman named Tamar, but he died soon after. Yehuda had his second son, Onan, marry Tamar and fulfill the mitzvah of Yibum, the levirate marriage. But he too died childless. Yehuda hesitated to give his third son to Tamar, so she returned to her father's home. Yehuda's wife then died, and he embarked on a business trip. Tamar dressed herself like a prostitute and sat by the side of the road. Not recognizing her, Yehuda was intimate with her, and she becomes pregnant. A few months later, when the pregnancy became evident, Yehuda ordered her executed for harlotry, still not knowing who she was. As she was being taken out to die, she produced some of Yehuda's personal effects that he left behind when he visited her. Forcing Yehuda to admit that he was the father and Tamar was spared. Tamar gave birth then to twin sons, Zerach and Peretz. And as we will learn later, Peretz is the father of Mashiach. All right, Chumash and Rashi with Rabbi Avtzin. The Mashiach genealogy. This is a long one, so get ready to hear the story in detail. Come on, scene change for me.
Jewish audio on Chabad.org.
Now, after describing the story of how Joseph is sold into slavery, the Torah does something very unusual. It kind of like moves to a different story. Almost feels like, when you're reading a novel and you reach the climax and then suddenly, hey, where did we move? It goes to a parallel story. But we'll understand in a moment why. Seeing their father's grief, the brothers turned on Yehuda. They told him, we went along with your idea to sell Joseph. You could have suggested that we return him to dad, and we would have listened to you. At their insistence, Yehuda stepped down from his position of leadership of his brothers at that time. Now, interesting, they still, as we mentioned yesterday, did not agree to tell their father because they waited for a sign of God to know that it's the right time. He moved away from them and entered into business partnership with a man from Adulam by the name of Chira. So he's living in Hebron till now. He moves to Adulam, which is a bit northwest of where he was living. Soon after, Yehuda sees the daughter of a certain renowned merchant named Shua, and he married her, and they had children. First was a son named Er, then a son Onan, and then a son Shelah. And they no longer had children after that. Not too long after, once the kids were of age, but according to the commentaries, they weren't very old, Yehuda takes a wife for Er, his firstborn. Her name was Tamar. Now, Tamar was the daughter of Shem, who had died 66 years prior to this, so she was at least 65 years old, if not older. She was beautiful. Afraid that bearing children would mar her beauty, Er would not consummate his marriage with her, didn't want her to fall pregnant, and there was no birth control at that time. Since wasting seed contravenes God's commandment to be fruitful and multiply, which is tantamount to murder according to the Bible, Er died before not regretting his act. Now, Judah tried to keep the Torah like all his family, and one of the laws in Torah is the laws of the Levirate marriage, which is that if a brother dies without having children, the next brother marries this woman so that he can build up the family name. So Onan marries her. Now Onan also doesn't want her to fall pregnant, also wasting his seed, and he was unaware of why his brother died, obviously. And again, Onan dies in the eyes of God. His reason was different, not so much because of her beauty, but because he didn't want to give offspring to his brother. He just felt like, why should I do that? So now it's two brothers dead, and there's only one left. And Yehuda's like, whoa, this ain't working. Technically, Tamar should marry Shelah, but instead of having her marry Shelah, Judah says to his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in your father's house for another year, until my Shelah grows up. In truth, he had no intention of marrying her. He thought, if he marries her, he'll die as well. He did not know why they died. He presumed something about Tamar caused her husband, and any future husband, to die prematurely. Although this presumption of mortal danger was legally sufficient to absolve Shelah from marrying her, Yehuda did not have her released from this duty. In order to keep her from marrying other men, something that can endanger their lives, he felt it would be preferable to keep her thinking that she was still promised to Shelah. So Tamar lives in her father's house, her family's house rather, because her father had died years ago, and waiting for Shelah to come of age. Well, a year passes, and Shua's daughter, Yehuda's wife, dies. So basically he lost two sons and a wife in a very short succession. After Yehuda was consoled, he went up together with Chira, his friend, the business partner, to Timnah, which was situated on the slope of a hill, to supervise the shearers of his flock, just to get his mind off all the tragedy. Tamar was then told, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his flock. Since she was told he was going up to Timnah, she knew which route he was taking, because Timnah was, as we said, on the slope of a hill. So she takes off her widow's garb, covers herself with a veil, wrapping it also around her face that she won't be recognizable, and sat at the crossroads on the way up to Timnah. Avram had pitched his tent for a while at this crossroads, and for this reason, this place was frequently visited by travelers wishing to honor his memory. Tamar knew that Yehuda would do the same. She really wanted to have children coming from Yehuda, so she saw that Shelah had grown up and not been given. She decided to have children from Yehuda herself. When Judah sees her sitting on the crossroads, he mistook her for a prostitute. She had covered her face, and he did not recognize her. Now, even though Yehuda knew that Tamar was anxious to bear his progeny, he did not suspect that this prostitute could be her, because she always covered her face when she visited his house as a daughter-in-law, and therefore she always came across as a paragon of modesty. He turned aside to her, going over the road to where she was sitting, and said, "If you consent, please prepare yourself so I can cohabit with you." He did not realize this was his daughter-in-law. Had he known this was Tamar, he would not ask to be with her, since having relations with her was presumed to lead to death, as it happened to Er and Onan, his very own children. She replied, "What will you give me as payment?" He said, "I will send you a kid goat from the flock." And she replied, "Yeah, but that's not now. What security will you give me to the flock?" He said, "What pledge should I give you?" And she answered, "Your signet ring, your special cloak," which is a sign of status in your family, which seems to imply, as we said earlier in the parsha, that he had a special cloak from his father as well, and the staff in your hand. Tamar specifically requested these three items because she was sure that Yehuda would try to get them back, and she could later use them to prove her identity. He gave it to her, was with her, and she conceives. She arose and left, took off her veil, and once again donned her widow's garb. Yehuda sends a kid goat with his friend Tal U'Matar in order to get the security pledge from that woman. He could not find her. He questions the people, "Where's that prostitute who was at the crossroads?" They're like, "Hey, no prostitute here." He returns to Judah and says, "I didn't find her," and everybody says there was no prostitute. So Judah says, "Let her keep what I gave her as a pledge. Otherwise people will start laughing at us. Look, I did send her that kid goat, but if you did not find her, what more can I do to fulfill my word?" Because Judah had deceived his father about Yosef with the use of a kid goat, Hashem arranged that he himself would be deceived in a kid goat. It is in this year, as these events are happening, that Yitzchak dies. Some 3 months go by, and Yehuda is informed, "Your daughter-in-law has not been married to anybody else since leaving her second husband, but obviously she was with a guy because she's pregnant." Now, when humanity collectively promised to have sexual morality after the flood, it agreed to punish priests' daughters, the daughters of priests, even unmarried ones, who act this way with the death by burning, echoing the Torah's decree that a priest's daughter who commits adultery must die by burning. Since Tamar was the daughter of Shem, who we spoke in the parsha of Lech Lecha, was a priest, Yehuda said, "Let her be burned." Tamar was acutely aware of the gravity of the crime of shaming someone in public, that she was ready to be burnt publicly rather than commit and shame her father-in-law. She therefore only let Yehuda know indirectly that she was pregnant by him. As she was being brought to be burnt, she sent word to her father-in-law as follows: "I am pregnant by the man to whom these belong." And she added, "Please identify these items. Whose signet ring, cloak, and staff are these? Please acknowledge your God." She sends a private message. "Admit that you are the father, and do not cause 3 innocent lives to be ended, mine and that of the twins." Yehuda recognized these items as being his. Even though he had not technically committed any wrongdoing, since prostitution was not forbidden before the Torah was given with an unmarried woman, it was still embarrassing that a member of Yaakov's family had indulged in such an inappropriate act. Nonetheless, Yehuda chose to suffer public disgrace rather than let Tamar be killed, and that is considered greatness. He says, "She is correct. She is pregnant by me. She was justified in contriving to conceive by me, since I did not give her to my son Shelah as I promised, and she felt I was ignoring my duty to make sure that she has children from this family. Furthermore, now that it is clear that she intended only to have relations with me, she cannot be considered of being a prostitute, so she is therefore not liable to the death penalty." A voice from heaven then announced, "I, God, am responsible for all this. Because Tamar was so modest whenever she visited her father-in-law's house, I ordained that the royal line of Jewish kings descend from her. I also ordained that the royal line should be descended from Yehuda. But when Er and Onan refused to father sons by her, I killed them and arranged for Tamar to have children with Yehuda himself. Once it was clear that Er and Onan had died because of their own sins rather than because of Tamar's, Yehuda married her based on this voice. So he was never again intimate with her in the same questionable way he had been with before. According to one opinion, according to other opinions, he did not stay with her. When Reuben heard about Yehuda's confession for his inappropriate behavior, he was also inspired to confess publicly that he had wrongly meddled in his father's affairs, and this set a tone of accountability within the family. As Tamar was giving birth, the midnight wife saw that there were twins in the womb. Both twins were destined to be righteous. And it's a merit that they were both righteous, unlike by Rivka, that only one of them was righteous, Yaakov, not Esav, that Hashem shortened the length of the pregnancy and she gave birth prematurely in the 7th month, and she didn't have to suffer the pregnancy much longer. While she was in labor, one of the babies stuck out his hand from the womb. The midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it around the hand to signify this one's first. Then the baby withdrew the hand. But as soon as he withdrew the hand, the other brother emerged, and his mother said, "Wow, you pushed yourself ahead with vigor." And that's why she named him Peretz, breaking through. And because ultimately firstborn rights is by which baby's head comes out first, Peretz was considered the firstborn. Then his brother with the scarlet thread comes out, and they named him Zerach, shining, after the shining scarlet thread. Why was Zerach not the firstborn? Because his descendants were not as illustrious as that of Peretz. from whom the royal family of King David came. So that's why he ended up being first. In the merit of Tamar's righteous intention to bear Yehuda children, these sons inherit Yehuda's strength and righteousness. So after discussing the story of Yehuda and really the beginning of the story of King David, which eventually leads to the Mashiach, we now go back to the story of Joseph. Why did we go on this tangent? Because remember, Yehuda only went away from his family because they blamed him for Joseph's sale.
All right, and now we come to Parsha Points with Rabbi Epstein. Coming up, as soon as this decides to change. Seriously having problems with this today. All right, are you ready? Here we go.
Parsha Points Vayeshev for Wednesday. Judah has the solution. He names his firstborn son Er, like the English word H-E-I-R. That'll solve this fratricide problem, Cain killing Abel, Jacob and Esau. I'll name my son Er. There'll be no contention. Except, oops, that wasn't enough. It didn't work out. We like to think that we can be so smart that we can assure no conflict. We can't. We do our due diligence, and then we deal with the issues as they come.
Shalom U'Bracha and good morning, or good afternoon, like we say, because who knows when you're watching this. And I want to welcome everybody from Shnayim Yomi, the Heilige Shnayim Yomi world. Welcome back to Parshas Vayeshev. We're holding Shlishi over here. Yosef is getting closer. Yosef approaches the brothers, the Shvatim, and what do? They just plan to kill him, and Reuven said, wait, let's throw him into a pit. He planned to come and save him. They end up grabbing him, they take the Ksenes Pasim off of him, and they throw him into a pit. Now this pit was loaded with snakes and scorpions, which if you think about it, which many of us don't, we're like, oh, there was snakes and scorpions, it was crazy. Okay, right there, where are we going for pizza? You know what I'm saying? If you stop for a second and you think about that, it's a crazy thing. He was thrown into a bar, into a pit, and there were scorpions. You know, scorpions are venomous, they're dangerous. So are snakes. It's a very, very scary matzav. You ever had a cockroach in your kitchen? You know what I'm saying? Imagine a scorpion. It's a scary thing. And Yosef, 17 years old, thrown into a pit. It's a pachad. Sometimes it's kedai to stop for 1 second and just try to think like, whoa, what was he going through? Okay, so they throw Yosef into a pit, and then the brothers all get together to eat, which shows, by the way, that they believe that they were doing the right thing. Like we keep saying, this is the shvatim. This wasn't like me and you, like when we're upset. The fact that they sat down to eat shows that their conscience was clear. It wasn't something like they thought like we're being bad. They really felt like he was chayav misa. Okay, now while they're eating, they see a group of Arab merchants passing by, and Yehuda's the one, the melech. He gets up and he says, instead of leaving Yosef to die, let's sell him to the merchants. Okay, ma betza, what are we gonna gain if he just dies? So let's rather sell him. Now in the Midrashim over here, which we're not going to talk about, we don't have the time, but there's a lot going on here. There was almost a war. There was a standoff. It wasn't so much what was going on over here. Might be kedai if you have time to take a look. But anyways, the Shvatim then sell Yosef to the merchants for 20 silver pieces. And then they take Yosef, these merchants, down to Mitzrayim. Also, he's resold a few times. Okay, now, Reuven, if you remember from last time, when I say last time, I mean yesterday. And if you watch the other one right before this, it's 5 minutes ago. But Reuven, when he had to leave for whatever reason, which we'll talk about in a second, he wanted to come back and save Yosef. It's not like he was going to take him out of the pit and save him. The only reason he said let's let him die is because he didn't want to, go against all the shvatim. So Reuven, now who left to do tshuva, he comes back to the pit to save Yosef's life, and lo and behold, there's no one there. Yosef is not there. So what does he do? He understands what happened, and he rips his garment. And he asks his brother, now what? What are we going to do now? What are we going to tell him? And this begs the question, because the pasuk said before that they'll say, what do you mean he was eaten by an animal? So I'm not sure exactly what Reuven was thinking over here, what the pasuk says, but what to think about. Anyway, so what do? They take the Ksenes Pasim and they dip it into goat blood, which is very similar to human blood. And they brought it back to their father and they said, do you recognize this beged? That's what they told Yaakov Avinu. Now remember that Yosef was Yaakov Avinu's pride. Is like he was his everything. He was his child who learned with him, knew like they were so close. And they had many similarities. I think over 20 similarities. Maybe one day we'll talk about that also. 20 similarities between Yaakov and Yosef. They both had the exact same stories. And he recognizes it right away. And he says, oh no, an animal must have ripped him apart. And he is plunged into mourning for his son. And nobody was able to comfort him. Nobody. Now we're talking about big people there, right? We keep saying the Shvatim and their children. No one was able to say anything that would give him some menucha, nothing. And meanwhile, Yosef is being taken down to Potiphar. So we're going to have to see what happens over here, because it's getting crazy. All right, Rabbi say we should all be zeichet to a good day, a good week, and do not give up. Keep going strong. And b'siyata d'shmaya, we're all going to make Hashem proud. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Parsha in a minute.
Welcome back to Parsha in a minute. In today's Chumash, Yehuda's daughter-in-law Tamar was promised to marry Yehuda's third son after her first two husbands died without any kids. When Yehuda didn't give his third son to Tamar, Tamar covered her face and dressed up as a prostitute and tricked Yehuda into being intimate with her because she wanted kids from such a great man. Tamar took Yehuda's ring, cloak, and stick as security deposit, and when Yehuda found out that Tamar was pregnant before giving her his third son, Yehuda said Tamar should be burnt. Tamar didn't go make an announcement that she got pregnant from Yehuda because she said, better I be burnt than I go embarrass Yehuda. At the end, Yehuda owned up to it, but we learned from Tamar that it's better to be burnt than to embarrass someone publicly. Don't ever embarrass someone, even as a joke. Don't make fun of someone. You never know if it's actually going to embarrass them. Embarrassing someone is such a big deal. Make sure you don't do anything that could even come close to that, because you never know if someone's actually going to be hurt from it.
There you go. That's a big deal. All right. That is going to take us to a Maya note moment.
How do we achieve peace and tranquility? In this week's Torah portion, Rashi comments, Bikesh Yaakov Leshev B'Shalva. In the beginning of Vayeshev, Jacob wants to dwell, but how does he want to dwell? In peace and tranquility. How do we achieve peace and tranquility? Well, this week is my mother's 90th birthday, and she taught me something really important. At the end of the Amidah, the s8e48, we walk back 3 steps. Yes, of course, we walk back from the king, we're standing before Hashem, but there's another reason. What do we say at the end of the s8e48 of the Amidah? Also, Shalom Bimromav. We want to make peace. How do you make peace? Walk back 3 steps. Make space for someone else's needs. Give honor to someone else by walking back. So therefore, how do we make peace? Walk back, make space. Shabbat Shalom. Happy birthday, Mom. And join in our campaign, Mayanot29.com.
There you go. All right. Rabbi Zusha Zilberstein is next.
I am recording here outside with a kind of fence on one side, a tree on the other side, the noise in the background. My friend, it's on purpose. And I will explain to you soon why. But before we do this, join me please in reciting chapter Tehillim, the one that we use every day, chapter 100, which is the thank you to Hashem for everything, and thank you Hashem for making today the ultimate day of redemption. Mizmor s8e48 Oril Adonai Kol Haaretz Ivdes Adonai B'Simcha Bo Lefanav V'Nono Du Adonai Elohim Hu Asanu V'Lo Enach Na'am V'Tzom Merisa Bo Yishor B'S8e48 Chatzeroiso B'Silo Hoido L'Baruch Shemo Ki Tov Adonai L'Yolam Chazdoi V'Yadoi V'Doi Emunasoi. Today, Chav Kislev, let's give again some tzedakah. And really, I should start again with Good Yom Tov and with the L'chaim, but for now, we'll go like this. So yesterday, as you heard from my grandson Menachem, a little shliach all the way in Argentina, where Argentina used to be a wasteland of Yiddishkeit, today, a bastion of Judaism. Tens and dozens of Bate Chabad, schools, yeshivas, seminary, girls' schools, etc., etc. All this is the result of the Alter Rebbe's being released from prison 227 years ago. And why is that? Because as we know, when Baal Shem Tov asked Mashiach, when are you coming? He was told, when your teachings will be spread out. That's what the Alter Rebbe set out to do. The Alter Rebbe, as we heard yesterday, started teaching the Chassidic philosophy, the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, which first was just small little synopsises, very deep thoughts, very transformational thoughts, but still spoon-fed. And a small little spoon, a teaspoon. The Alter Rebbe decided to do it with ladles. The Alter Rebbe decided to feed the world, to feed the Jewish world with the knowledge of God, but with full ladles, in other words, with full understanding, to eat it, to absorb it, to internalize it. In Chabad, the word Chabad, which stands for Chachma Bina Das, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, that it should be just a nice little exciting and encouraging thought, but it has to be a learning process. Where? And the whole thing was because the Alter Rebbe spread it chutza, to the outside. So yes, that's why I'm sitting today here outside. Yeah, you hear the noise, the background, but we have to be able to tune out of the background noise. We have to be able to tune out of the worldly noise and tune into what we really are, who we really are. And for that purpose, the Alter Rebbe authored a small little book called the Tanya. Tanya, which is based on the verse that Moshe Rabbeinu says in the Devarim. Moshe Rabbeinu encourages the Jewish people and tells them, you think that Judaism is so difficult? You just got the whole Torah with 613 mitzvahs and all the customs which comes along with it. It is difficult. Chas v'shalom, says Moshe Rabbeinu. Ki korei v'lecha hadover ma'od. It is very close to you. What? Hadover, that thing. Which thing? Torah mitzvahs. Judaism, godliness is close to you. God is close to you. Beficha, in your speech, ubilvavcha, in your heart, in your emotion, in your actions. So takes the Alter Rebbe this verse, and in 53 chapters, he shows us, he explains us, he literally takes us by hand and develops within us the understanding, the appreciation, the know-how. We can actually make it so close to us. So in a sense, yesterday, Yutes Kislev, on the 19th day of Kislev, the Tehillim that we started with is Tefillah LeMoshe, the prayer of Moshe. In the introduction, the little caption above of the Tehillim, this chapter, which I don't think we know who wrote it, but there it says that King David found that chapter attributed to Moshe Rabbeinu. So, interesting, the day of the Alter Rebbe's freedom from prison is connected to Tefillah LeMoshe. And the answer is simple, because Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who, through him, we received the Torah, who fused heaven and earth, where the divine and the finite have become one entity. Thousands of years later, the Alter Rebbe comes and takes that verse and shows us how we can actualize it. Because this is the ultimate perfection of that fusion, is the time of Mashiach. And therefore, as Reb Zusha said, and the other tzaddikim said, with this little book, we are going to welcome Mashiach. So friends, if you didn't start yesterday, start today learning every day a portion of the Tanya. You have it online all over. And in Mirz Hashem, we're going to hear it in the Beis HaMikdash, maybe from the Alter Rebbe, maybe from Mashiach, the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach. We'll find out, and maybe we find out today.
There you go. All right. And that takes us to the saying of Tehillim. Get out your book of Psalms. We are going to do chapters 23 and 124 today. Are you ready? Sorry about that. All right, here we go.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי, לא אחסר, בינוס תשע, ירביצני, על מי מנוחוס ינהלני, נפשי שובב, ינחני ומעגלי צדק, למען שמו, גם כי לך בגץ על מובס, לא ירא, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי, תשענת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני, כל ימי חיי ושבתי בביס אדוני לאורך ימים.